Here you go. We're
So
doing it.
we are! Yay! All right. So I hope my audience knows who you are, but in case they don't, introduce yourself with like what you do with the DNC and in Pennsylvania.
Well, I have to start with the most important phrase in any language. Thank you. And a special thank you to you for everything that you're doing every single day, the type of research and then giving the type of succinct explanations that people need in this moment. I'm just so grateful to you, and I'm excited to see how your platform is going to continue to grow so that more people can hear from you and really be inspired by the work that you're doing. So I want to just start by laying all the praise onto you. You really deserve it. You're a hero. So me, yeah, I'm Rep Malcolm Kenyatta. I'm a kid from North Philly who has the best job in the world. I get to represent my neighbors in the 181st Legislative District here in Pennsylvania. If folks know Temple University, they know the heart of my district, exactly where I'm from. And I also have it's supposed to be a part-time job, but it feels like also a full-time job of being vice chair of the DNC.
I want to talk about the Pennsylvania House for first. I know we need to talk about the DNC, but I want to talk about the Pennsylvania House.
Do it.
For one of my three wins on Sunday, I talked about how you guys were pretty creative and moved the trans girl sports ban from the Education Committee to the Health Committee to stop a discharge petition. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm really proud that last session I was chair of the LGBTQ Equality Caucus. I passed it on to somebody else because I really believe in us giving folks opportunities to lead. But as you might imagine, as the most senior member of the LGBTQ community in the Pennsylvania legislature, I'm front and center on all of these fights, particularly the ongoing assault and the bullying from people who should be fucking adults, but are spending every day trying to bully kids who want to play sports. And we see right now in Pennsylvania, really no different from a lot of states around the country where these horrific bans have been introduced. The Senate introduced a ban on trans kids playing in sports, and we have been crystal clear that's not coming up in the House. And even if you're someone who says, Malcolm, I have a lot of questions about trans kids in sports or whatever the case may be, even if there are folks who have legitimate questions, I think there's just a real math problem on this when we think about the ferocity of the response versus the amount of students who are trans who even want to play sports. I mean, Trump has more felonies than there are trans athletes in Pennsylvania, yet the state Senate refuses to pass a budget and is instead trying to engage in the type of culture war stuff that Democrats always get accused of, but that actually Republicans are the only ones who are ever engaged in truly. So we moved that bill from one committee to another committee after they tried to pull a legislative trick to force a vote on it. And it's not a bill that will pass the House of Representatives. And I'm very lucky that we have a governor and Governor Shapiro who's made clear it's a bill that if it ever got to his desk, he would veto.
Are you still dealing with the budget? I know that that was an issue last week.
It remains an issue. And one of the most important issues is funding for public transit. As you all know, certainly as you know, transit is the lifeblood of not just our urban centers, also our suburban communities. And many people don't make the connection. If you're a senior, somebody with a disability in a rural community who gets picked up via paratransit, all of that is funded through our transit agencies. And right now, our transit agencies are in dire straits. Here in the Southeast, our transit agency is called SEPTA. And when I say Southeast Pennsylvania, I mean Philly and the suburban counties for people who might not be from Pennsylvania. But we have Republican colleagues who are doing their damnedest to not fund SEPTA. And they are holding up the budget because they don't want to fund this vital resource at a moment where we know more and more of folks where there is solid mass transit will use mass transit. And we know all the different positive impacts that come from that. But we're also looking at not funding SEPTA in a moment where we know there'll be a direct correlation to loss of jobs, the loss of businesses locating here, to the types of events and big, festivals that Philadelphia proudly hosts. You can't do those things if you don't have serious mass transit. And so we have FIFA, coming to Philadelphia and the region. Obviously, the 250th anniversary of our nation's founding. A lot of things are happening in Philly, and to be in a position right now where we would lose out on the type of tourism dollars and everything else that's really critical to Pennsylvania's economy. Tourism is the third or fourth biggest driver of tax dollars in Pennsylvania. It is such a short-sighted, cynical ploy by my colleagues right now. And let me just say another thing holding up the budget, and I wish this were not true. Republicans want to cut healthcare for folks who have intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities. That's the hill they want to die on right now.
Is this the same budget conversation? I know in 2022, I think it was, that Joanna McClinton did that floor speech. Was that also in this same budget realm, and that was the hill they were dying on then, the abortion fight, or was that something different?
So that was a constitutional amendment that they were trying to do, or they were trying to put an abortion, ban into our constitution. I work with folks who, as many folks in my family would say, older folks, who major in the minors and then they minor in the majors. We have real opportunities to make life better for people across Pennsylvania, to continue our critical investments in K through 12 education after decades of not properly funding our schools, to double down on the investments that we're making in gun violence prevention, which has led to precipitous drops, not zero like we need, but precipitous drops in gun homicides in our city. There's a lot of work that we need to continue to do to make sure that Pennsylvania is a place that people want to start a family. And so that means investing in things like paid family leave and continuing our work to try to reduce the cost of childcare. We did a child tax credit mirroring the federal child tax credit in the last budget, which gives a rebate to parents who are putting their kids in daycare, helping them to afford it. So the list goes on and on of things that we could actually be doing. And you would think that when, we can't come to an agreement in government, it's because we're arguing over how to help the most people. But that's not what's happening. I have Republicans in the Senate who apparently aren't happy unless they can make life miserable for as many people as possible. But we have a majority in the State House, and we are not going to stop until we get a budget that does right by the working people of Pennsylvania. That's just full fucking stop.
I've been following you for so long. I've been following you since you nominated Joanna McClinton to be Speaker.
My dear friend, I would have never believed it. I worked on her first campaign as like a top-notch volunteer. Would never believe it that I would be able to nominate her in that way. And she's an incredible leader.
She's done an incredible job. How do you balance being in the Pennsylvania House and being in the DNC? Since you said that the DNC is also a full-time job, how do you do two full-time jobs?
It's so funny because just this Saturday is a prime example of how we sort of balance it. And I think the easy answer to how you balance it is like, I just do it. And I have a husband that gives me a lot of grace to do the travel and the constant phone calls and everything else that this requires. But Saturday is a perfect example. We did a community event in the district in the morning where we were talking to people about critical state services, engaging them in all the ways that my office does on a daily basis. We also had, combined with that, a shredding event. So people's personal private information, particularly in an age where people are, engaged in all type of identity theft, and particularly with our seniors who may have a piece of mail misplaced or something that has sensitive information, and then that information ends up, being further exposed. We want to make sure people can dispose of that safely. And so twice a year, we do shredding events where people can bring their sensitive information, shred it completely for free. And so I did that in the morning. And then I ran from that event, got on a flight, was in Nashville, co-headlining an event for the Tennessee Democrats with Chair Martin. And then I was back the next day to go on a much needed gym date with my husband, Dr. Matt. We love going to the gym together. So I had to do all of it. So you just kind of do it.
What is your favorite thing that you've done as a member of the DNC?
A part of what I hope I've done is to tell people that to get involved with the party, you don't have to lack frustration with the party.
Mm.
A lot of times I hear criticisms and critiques of the party as a reason to not be engaged. And I would suggest that it's the exact opposite. That if you're critical of the party, then this is a moment where you do what I decided to do. Open up the hood, get some oil on your face, and try to fix it to make it work. Because institutions, they don't disappear because we're not involved with them.
Mm.
They just continue to operate in ways that we don't want them to. And I think the people who are best positioned to drive the party into the next era are the people who are stepping up right now. Young people, in some instances, folks who never considered running for office. I'm always so inspired by so many of my colleagues who came in with me who were homemakers or who were nurses or who were doctors or lawyers or just, I have a colleague who's in the state Senate who's a plumber his whole life and just kind of got sick of government not working for plumbers and ran for state Senate. And now he's a state senator. It's those types of people who we need more of in our government. And so, sometimes I'll see people, and I hope we see more of this, people who nobody expected to run for office, particularly the folks who never expected that they would run for office, okay? Who then win. And then I see stuff online of like, oh, the Democratic Party must be mad. No, I'm excited. I am excited. I want these people to win. I'm not mad. I'm happy. I'm a poor black gay kid from North Philly. Everybody told me there was no way I was going to be elected to office. But I say to folks, the distinctions that we carry, where we're from, who our parents were, all those different things. We need that in politics. We need that in the political sphere. And we need to get out of this stinking, thinking that you need a certain resume to run for office, or that somehow folks in the Democratic Party infrastructure are trying to keep you from running for office. No, I want you to run for office. And to your point of like why I'm so proud is that what ends up happening is we saw this happen with the Assemblyman Mamdani. And then you had a former governor who went, and sent out a little press release saying he wasn't going to support the Democratic nominee. His right, do what he wants to do. But I saw person after person saying, oh, the Democratic Party's not supporting the nominee. And one of the things I'm happiest about right now is I can call bullshit on that immediately and say, like, that's a random guy who is now a lobbyist, I think, for like casinos, who has nothing to do with the Democratic Party infrastructure. And in fact, the Democratic Party infrastructure is supporting our nominee in New York, just like we're going to support our nominees all across this country in New Jersey, Virginia, the list goes on and on and on, because this party does not pick our nominees. We work to elect our nominees, but we don't pick. Voters pick. And I'm really proud to be here in a moment where I can channel the righteous rage and frustration I have about government not working for working people in the way that it should, into an institution that we need to be strong, that we need to be effective. The Democratic Party is the only thing, including all of us at the grassroots level, that's standing in between us and an authoritarian, bigoted, idiotic, Jeffrey Epstein riddled list of lunatics who are clearly currently running our government. So yeah, you can be frustrated, but that's not enough. What are you going to do with that frustration?
You've been to so many states now. You've talked to so many members. You've talked to so many people who want to be in office. What state inspires you the most? What state do you think like has the best future?
Well, this is kind of like picking my favorite child, but I'll answer this way. You've been seeing me go a lot across the South. I was in Mississippi. I was just in Tennessee. I've been in Florida twice already. Been in Texas. I was in Louisiana for the Essence Festival, and I'm going to continue to spend a lot of time in the South. And yes, it's because I love the South and they're incredible organizers who are there, but also because it's math. 40% of the US population by 2030 is going to live in the South. It is critical for us right now that A, we don't take anybody for granted, that we don't buy into this idea, as Chair Martin says, that any state is perennially blue or red, but that if we go everywhere and talk to people about what's at stake and also talk to them about my three favorite words, how we're going to make their life better, then I think that we can win in a lot of these places. And Tennessee is a prime example of what is giving me a lot of joy and hope. Tennessee, for the first time in God knows how long, has active, organized parties in all 95 counties in Tennessee. That is a big deal. So that people understand, Malcolm, why are you talking about, organizing county parties? What the fuck does that mean? Let me explain this. The DNC and state parties build out the infrastructure that our candidates then use to run from. We want, when somebody's running for president, which is what everybody thinks about, whoever our presidential nominee is, to have smart, talented, and tested organizers on the ground in states where they've built relationships, where they've worked on a school board race, where they've worked on a city council race, where they have been able to kick the tires that then our presidential nominee can really plug into. We want our presidential nominee to not be having to stand up stuff in all these different states, but actually have organizers who are trained, ready on the ground in their states, who know those members of their community, people who understand how to do phone banking that's going to be necessary, a voter file that is up to date and clearly, and thoughtfully managed. And I know for the average person, like, managing the voter file doesn't sound like a big thing or a big deal, but that is literally how campaigns talk to people, how we know who you are when we knock on your door. All that requires a team of people to actually do that work. And we're in a position right now of building out that infrastructure across the country. And Tennessee is a prime example of, I think, the positive impacts of those investments. So if you've heard me say or heard you tweet or seen you tweet or talk about on your YouTube channel, we're sending out $1 million a month from the DNC to our state parties to do things like this, to make sure that in the 3,460 counties in the country, that in every single one of those counties, there is a Democratic Party that is organizing on the ground, talking to voters, whether the county has 1,000 people or millions of people. That's what we need to be doing.
What are some things that are coming down the pipeline? I know you probably can't talk about everything, but are there some things that you can mention that are coming down the pipeline that we should be excited about coming out of the DNC?
So the first thing that I can mention is Organizing Summer. Organizing Summer is a targeted effort from the DNC to help flip the House in 2026. So there are 34, 36 targets. And what we're doing in those districts is actually organizing people on the ground to become organizers so that we can, balloon the amount of people on the ground who understand how to do deep relational organizing that helps you win elections. Because you don't want the first time you're knocking on somebody's door to say, hey, vote for my candidate. You want that first time you knock on the door to understand what they care about, what's happening in their lives, what services can we provide in real time to you or your family. And that takes a lot of man and woman power and people power on the ground. And people need to be trained to do that effectively. And so we're in the process right now of training people to do that. And then once people get that training, we're in the process of identifying volunteer captains who can then go out and do relational organizing in their communities. And that is really on the heels of the town halls that you've seen us now do in every single state. We've done a town hall in every single state. I believe over 150 town halls since the start of this administration. And what we've been doing at those town halls is not only responding to the questions that Republican legislators are afraid to answer from their constituents, but then also getting people's information to not, just send them another text message asking for money, but to say, hey, here is how you can volunteer. Here's how you can get plugged into your local Democratic Party. Here's how you can consider running for office yourself if you want to be a candidate for office. And that's what we're trying to do to really build on our efforts. So Organizing Summer is a really exciting thing that we're engaged in right now. The other thing that I would say that I'm really excited about in this moment is the daily blueprint. And I know that I've been seeing like individual clips shared. Maybe people haven't been watching the full thing, but certainly the clips have been making the rounds, and that's really important. The daily blueprint is a part of the strategy of trying to preempt and rebut all the lies that come out of the administration every day. And so I've heard people ask me, and a lot of people tweeted me saying, Malcolm, you need a press secretary. First of all, we have a press secretary who's working really hard every single day. And we have an incredible comms team that is putting together this daily blueprint, which visually looks like a traditional sort of news program and is driven in a way where people can watch it long form, but also pull out different clips with information about what's happening in DC or what's happening in the States, and also the lies that are coming out of this administration, because unfortunately, this administration is full of freaking lies. And then the final thing I'll say is, if you don't follow this, and I laugh about it a little bit, but it's also pretty serious. The DNC has created the Epstein bot. And so if you follow on Twitter every single day, we have a Twitter account called Epstein bot, where you can get all the up-to-date things on what's happening with the Epstein files and this president's refusal to release them. And this is important because obviously many of us know, at least high level, the types of pernicious violence that Jeffrey Epstein inflicted, sexual violence against minors, against women of all different ages, and the type of despicable acts that led to him and his partner, Miss Maxwell, who's currently incarcerated. And we know that Donald Trump is on the flight logs to Jeffrey Epstein's island. We know that there are more pictures of Donald Trump, as I heard, I guess it was Senator Claire McCaskill, who said there are more pictures of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein than there are trans athletes in the NCAA. And that is absolutely true. And this administration has said they were going to release them. And I'm been proud to see Ro Khanna and other members of the House right now, as we are talking, trying to force the House to vote on a bill that would release those files to the public. They should be released no matter who is on them, because that type of violence, particularly against kids, is nothing that any of us should be okay with happening. Certainly, we should know if the president of the United States, more than what we know, we should know how and in what ways he's implicated in those documents. And so I'm really happy that this is an example of this party not being afraid to throw a punch, not being afraid to call a thing, and not being afraid to sort of get into some of these, even some of these MAGA, fights. One of the things we did was we actually opened an account on Trump's Truth Social and have been every single day on Truth Social talking about the need for these documents, to be made public. So we have to fight and work in every way that we can. But the DNC can't do everything. Right. I know that there are folks who think we run the congressional calendar and we decide what happens in every state capital. I wish, actually, I don't wish, already looking at my schedule, that I was in charge of all those things. But we can't be in charge of everything. But what we can do, and what I hope people hear me saying, run for office. Consider running for office. The vice chair of the DNC is saying to you clearly, please hear me. The DNC is not a fucking incumbent protection racket. My job is not to protect incumbents. That's not why I'm in this job. Our job is to elect Democratic nominees. And if we're going to build the type of party that we need you in it. We need you in it. We need your complaints. We need your frustration. But then ultimately, we need your time and we need your talent to make this party what it can and must be. So thank you for continuing to do yeoman's work. Can't wait to keep following you and retweeting all the great, insightful stuff that you post, and really look forward to talking to you again soon on Instagram Live or wherever else.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I already adored you with everything in my heart, and now I adore you even more. You're had so much good stuff to say and share, and I kept thinking I need to pull out this quote and I need to pull out this quote, and this. It was just it's wonderful to talk to you, and we're going to do it again.
All right, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.